So, right on. Um, there's a couple of concepts that are stupid. Like, we make some things toxic by design, um, and we really shouldn't. There's a lot of products that you can't touch again after you've used it because it's just too nasty. And that's just because we're sloppy in our manufacturing. Um, I don't know why we make things single use. Like, obviously, convenience, I get it. Disposable spoon or disposable plate, 'cause sometimes you don't feel like dealing with it. But then we're forced to have stuff that just goes one way. And so I feel like we don't look at that cost in the discussion. Like, oh, I hate washing spoons. We'll just make some spoons that are designed to be used once. And like, they didn't have to be disposable, but we built them to be single use and then we market them to convince everybody to throw them out. I don't know. I mean, you can't make everybody bring their own spoons all the time. And I know that washing dishes is a pain in the ass. And I've used disposable stuff. I know, I get it. But I think that, cutting down on that makes a lot of sense. So anyway, that's worth avoiding. And another thing that we do is we make a lot of stuff that becomes the buyer's problem. It's a strategy that's kind of crappy where, like, once you've bought a flat screen TV, good luck getting rid of that thing. Like, you can't put it in the trash. And, like, if you're an old person, you can't, like, drive that to the landfill. Like, it's hazardous material. Like, there's a lot of stuff in your house that you probably wouldn't be able to get rid of. Technically, if you have, like, old fishing sinkers, you're not supposed to put them in the trash because they're made out of lead. And so we make stuff, and then we're like, buyer's problem. Like tires. Like, when you go buy your tires, like, you're not allowed to dump tires. I mean, technically, you got to pay somebody to take it. And so anyway, these are problems with our waste disposal, but integrated waste management is when you have all these things together. We try to avoid some and try to shrink how much goes to the landfill. Now, some stuff has to go to the landfill. I don't know, like when you tear apart a house and there's old insulation, don't know what else to do with that, so that's got to go to the landfill. So we'll talk about landfills in a moment. But I think this is probably the right time to talk really briefly about recycling. It's kind of nuts that recycling is so imperfect, but you got to realize that a lot of recycling uses more energy in picking it up and cleaning it and melting it and reforming it than mining it in the first place. And so there's some really interesting energy conversions and efficiencies. At the end of this, I'd like you to Google something, so get ready to take notes on this. But, paper doesn't really make sense to recycle, unfortunately. It's so heavy and it's so bulky. And that taking paper down to fiber to build new paper makes more expensive, crappy paper than just making fresh paper. So globally, all of the recycled paper and cardboard was going to a couple of economies that didn't have the capacity to make their own cardboard. And then within the last couple of years, China's like, nah, we're good. We can make our own cardboard. And the whole planet was like, well, what am I going to do with all this recycling? And China's like, well, I don't need it because I'm making my own cardboard now. So globally, like, there's giant warehouses of cardboard that have no place to go. Recycling is not always economically viable. And it's also not very dependable. Like, if you can just subsidize an aluminum mine, you're going to get 20 years of a steady supply of aluminum. But consumer habits change and shipping prices change. And so recycling this aluminum can is not subsidized by the federal government, but taking more aluminum out of the ground is made cheaper by your tax dollars. We make the aluminum mine more efficient by giving them free money. Like, they don't have to pay, like, federal taxes because we cover those to help the aluminum mine keep our economy running. which means if you're trying to recycle this thing, you're trying to get it back into a brick of aluminum for less than an artificially cheap price of producing that aluminum in the first place. And so it's funny, recycling isn't as easy as we thought. Plus, there's all kinds of stuff that can't be recycled. Plus, if you contaminate recycling, it becomes ruined. Plus, it's really laborious to sort things correctly, and human labor has become really expensive because we don't want to treat people like garbage. So fun fact, the last thing I want to say is at the end of this slide, I'd like you to do, at the end of this video, I'd like you to do a quick search for efficiency of recycling commodities or economics of recycling commodities, and you may want to add like table, graph, chart into your searches just so you get some images that are easier to look through. But you'll be amazed. There's a whole bunch of stuff which really doesn't make sense to recycle in 2020 in the United States. Like styrofoam is perfectly recyclable, but there's no place on the planet where it's economically worth doing. It's just not worth driving it around because it's made from this highly concentrated product that's really efficient to drive. But getting all of that recycling and then melting it back down to like blow it up into new styrofoam, you're just shipping air around. So there's no place in the world where recycling aluminum is cost effective. And in an open economy, it just can't compete. So even though it's perfectly recyclable, nobody does it. Take a minute to look at those. This is the end of number 19. I know that was a long one, but thanks for staying.